I think we have our presenters and I think we can start. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. There's a couple of people I'm not familiar with, but I'm Nikisha, an occupational therapist here at Casa, and I'm co-hosting this with Nico Fulmer. He's a research coordinator here at Casa. And we're doing our SCI Return to Work workshop series. We started these back in April of 2000, and we were having them on site. And unfortunately, with COVID, we had to halt everything, put on hold, and we finally just got the green light to start it up again. But obviously, now we have to go virtual. But I think we can reach a lot more people, a lot more of the population virtually. So I hope that this will be enjoyable, educational, and we still have 2 more after this one. So hopefully you guys come back in the following weeks. We have an awesome panel of individuals today. They're going to share their experience, knowledge, resources in returning to work. And at the end, hopefully we have about 15 minutes for you guys to ask questions and get a little more insight into their experience. So a couple rules with Zoom, since it's kind of new to all of us. We ask that you guys remain on mute for the most part, except our speakers. If you have questions, you can input them into the chat box in Zoom at any time, and we'll start collecting those and ask them at the end. Or you can wait to the end and then you can unmute yourself and ask the question accordingly at the end. Okay, so we're going to introduce our panelists. The first person we have is Andrew Skinner. He is the founder of Triumph Foundation. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Triumph. It's an amazing organization locally here in California, but I think you guys do stuff all over. Andrew Skinner experienced his C6 spinal cord injury in a snowboarding accident in 2004. He has gone on to live a full and productive life. He is married to Kirsten. Together they have a daughter named Betty, a dog named Bailey, and a home in Santa Clarita. He is the founder of Triumph Foundation, a nonprofit organization that helps children, adults, and veterans with spinal cord injury to triumph over obstacles they face. Triumph's goal is to make quality of life a reality for people with disabilities and to educate the general population about inclusiveness. They specialize in providing guidance on dealing with life challenges and inspiring all to live a life of purpose. Welcome and thank you, Andrew.
Yay. Who's that young guy?
That guy over there. Okay, next we have Andrea Jennings from Shifting Creative Paradigms. Andrea Jennings is an actress, model, and public speaker, commissioner, and the founder of Shifting Creative Paradigms Entertainment and Productions. Andrea experienced a major car accident at the top of her career, leaving her with life-changing injuries. In her recovery, she learned how to reestablish herself and discovered her purpose through her company. Andrea envisions a world where underrepresented people in media, such as people with disabilities, will one day be depicted as leaders in substantial roles. Her company promotes an accurate portrayal of marginalized groups and strives to produce inclusive and diverse content. Welcome and thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you. And last but not least, we have James Johnson from Unique Pic Creations. James is a father of 4 and happily married. He has been previously employed as a registered nurse, respiratory therapist, and also had his own process serving business with his brother. James has always had a passion for art. However, his skills in computer and graphic design were elevated through creating advertisements for his process serving company. In 2017, James was involved in an accident that left him paralyzed from the shoulders down. During recovery from his accident, he began returning to the computer via a specialized mouse and eventually started his own business, Unique Pic Creations. Today, James collaborates with artists all over the world and creates some of the best displays of vibrant colors. We have one of his arts on the screen as well, and you can see they are magnificent. So welcome, James. Woo. So now we're going to go into a couple questions that we developed and that we think are generalized for this topic. Questions. Andrew, do you want to start?
I'm so sorry. Did you say Andrew or Andrea?
Andrew, is my internet going in and out?
It went in and out. I'm sorry.
You can do ladies first.
Whoever would like to go first.
Andrew, you can go.
All right. I was trying to be a gentleman, but thank you, birthday girl. So I'm Andrew, and I have a spinal cord injury. I broke my neck, kind of a freak accident, but my whole life was shattered at 24 years old, and I was completely lost in a world that I never dreamed I would ever become a part of. But I was very fortunate that I had a wonderful family support, and I also had people that had gotten injured before me that gave me hope and resources and just helped me kind of put the puzzle back together. And so when I got injured, I was fresh out of college, and I had landed a great job and was on top of the world and thought I had it all planned out. And like I said, it all kind of took a radical detour that I never saw coming. And me being fresh into the workforce, I had worked throughout college and had many small jobs prior to my injury. But what I was doing was construction work. And so I wasn't able to return to swinging a hammer and digging ditches. And so for me to go back to that same job place, I had to reinvent myself and learn new skills. And so I was fortunate that the company trained me to do bookkeeping and estimating and marketing and help find a new role for me. And so I like to say I moved up to management. And I also got help from the Department of Vocational Rehab with some assistance to drive again and vehicle modifications that made me excel even more in the workforce. And then to make a very long story short, the economy had some twists and turns. If you guys remember, the later 2000s, 2008, and this and that, construction kind of was at a standstill. And so I got into real estate for a little while and doing some other ventures like that. But ultimately started Triumph Foundation, never dreaming it would become a job. But after about 4 years of running Triumph Foundation, was able to raise enough money to pay myself a small salary. And now this is what I do full time. So I've got lots of experience from reinventing yourself after your injury using different, skill sets that we have, because I really believe that our abilities far outweigh any disability that we have. We can still contribute. We live in the information age. I'd love to help people with those aspects. And then also with just navigating kind of getting off government assistance programs and different ways that Triumph might be able to help you with some employment assistance, because we have a number of programs too that I can go into later.
Great. Andrea, can we get your input on this?
Well, thank you for sharing your story, Andrew. Although we kind of run in the same circles, I'd never really talked to you. So it's really good to hear your story. Very similarly, I was working at a Fortune 500 company, and I was on my way to work. I was a mother of a 12-year-old at the time. And I had just recently been promoted. So the joy of that was just wonderful. I was overseeing a small department, but still, it was just great. About 2 weeks later, I was on the freeway and I was rear-ended, and it caused me to have 2 injuries. One was a high spinal cord. So I'm just blessed to be here. It was a high spinal cord injury, C3-4, but it was incomplete. But we all know, and for people that are watching, when you have a spinal cord injury that high, that controls your breathing and everything. So it's just a blessing that I'm alive. And then I also had, because of the whiplash motion, I had a form of it was almost like a stroke. It's called diffuse axonal injury. And so with that, I had 2 barriers from returning back to work: the physical, and then I had to relearn a lot of things all over again. I had aphasia, which is when you think you're saying the right thing, but you're really not. So imagine trying to go back and be a manager at a Fortune 500 company and lead people. So first I had to take care of myself, my daughter, And all those things were a priority. I almost lost custody of my daughter because I couldn't remember like how to dial 911, and it's a shame, you know, but I was able to pull it through with great family support as Andrew had. I'm just blessed for that. And a caregiver, a wonderful caregiver, and a mom. My mother, who has since passed, was a great resource of information. So she was very helpful at that time. So, you know, what I decided to do, like Andrew, is just, I had to learn how to pivot and recreate myself like we have done with COVID-19. But it was hard. Like I was doing things on my end, but I realized that I always thought the ADA law was being enforced or adhered to. And I was really shocked that many things that I wanted to do, I couldn't, you know. And then being forced to choose between my healthcare and getting better, and then returning back to work, and even returning back to work and being successful, you know. So I was able to do that, but many times I had failed attempts because I didn't have a program like this. So I'm so happy to be a part of a program. And later on, we'll discuss some of the things that I found helpful and some of the things that I did that weren't helpful. So, but again, thanks for having me.
Of course. So sorry to hear about your mother, but it
Thank
seems
you.
you have such an inspirational story, and we're excited to hear more about it.
Thank you.
What about you, James? Tell us more about yourself and your current employment or passions.
Hi, this is his caregiver, Desert. Can you guys go ahead and go forward because the nurse is here, and then he's going to tell a story after.
No worries. Totally get it. We will
Thank you
come
so
back.
much.
Thank you. All right. Let's go to the next question then. So I think you guys are touching on this, but obviously I think returning to work is one of the biggest challenges and difficult situations that people with an injury may want to accomplish. What do you think are the biggest challenges, barriers in returning to work, and how did you overcome those, or what advice do you have for people that want to return but feel like it may not be possible for them?
Andrea, do you want to go first since I went first?
Sure. Reliable transportation was a big barrier for me. My left side of my body was I was partially paralyzed, by the way. So my left side of my body was a little bit more affected than the right side, almost like hemiplegia, but it was more like almost like a walking, like a quad, I should say. But so it was hard for me to drive, and because of the cognitive part, it was hard for me to use the modifications for driving. It was kind of confusing. So I had to rely on my city's driving transportation service, and then there was another service that I depended on. Unfortunately, they weren't reliable at that time. I'm not sure what they are now. And it just wasn't feasible because you're dropped off. And if you're trying to make a really quick stop, you know, then you're left there with, I'm sure other people with spinal cord injuries realize this, that you know, if you have a catheter, you know, there's certain things that you have to do if you have bowel and bladder problems, or you get cold or hot. So it's difficult in those situations when you're just left and stranded. So that's not good if you're trying to return to work. The other barriers that I had was pain and trying to deal with the pain. And so you're advised to take medicines, but those medicines have an effect on you. So you're tired or you're sleepy. And so that's a barrier. So it's like a learning process. You have to learn your new self, like how do you manage, you know, going to work when you're tired. I also had migraines. Some people that have had car accidents or any type of accidents, they may also suffer from that. But yeah, I had migraines. You never know when that's gonna happen. I have good and bad days. Today's a good day. On my bad days, sometimes it ranges from me being a little bit more a little bit less energetic, and to being totally debilitated, like I'm just in the bed. So a lot of going back to work, doesn't allow for that flexibility for all of these things that I was experiencing. I needed a caregiver's assistant. I had doctor's appointments. I had about 8 different doctors, a urologist, a neurologist. I had to go to physical therapy, and I had 3 types. I had speech therapy, physical, occupational, and then there's a rehabilitation doctor. I can't even tell you how many doctors. So how do you go to work and then keep your doctor's appointments? So, there was a lot of challenges with that. How I was able to finally find some success is one of the options that I've had with speaking with a counselor at a program that I'll talk to you later about. It's called Promoting Opportunities Demonstration, is that she helped me determine that maybe starting my own business was more feasible for me. Everything that I just told you, I can still kind of maybe create my own hours and get to the doctor's appointments, or when I have a migraine, I can go rest. Because when you have a migraine, you don't want to be on a computer. You don't need the lights that they have in the offices. Some of those lights trigger or aggravate your migraine and things of that nature. So there's so many other things. There's balance issues. When I started to walk, I look strong. Somebody could come up to me and just barely pass me and I could fall out, but I look really strong. So I think the best thing to do, my advice to others is, I don't want to sound discouraging. I'm very honest with you about all these issues, because once I realized what they were, I was able to write them all down and then maybe tell the employer, or I did a lot of temp work, and then we can come up with a plan together. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. You have rights. And by the way, I've never met a disabled person who didn't want to work. For me personally, all of my disabled friends, they all want to return to work and be productive citizens, including myself. So.
Very true. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and similar, challenges, kind of touched on. Number one, self-care. I think you got to figure out, your own daily program and kind of getting that dialed in before you're able to make a commitment to another, organization, company, what have you. And so me kind of figuring that out, and then communication, working with who that employer is and setting up some parameters on what I am able to do and what I'm not able to. I was not able to return to a quote unquote 9-to-5 job. But what I was able to do was, set up an agreement between us. You touched on temp work, Andrea, which I think, is really sometimes really beneficial for us, where it's maybe contract work where you're not there every day, and or setting up a job schedule where you're based off of achievements rather than necessarily punching a time card. And so some of it was, look, it's project oriented. We need to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And they didn't really care if I got to work at 9 or at 11, because some days I had an appointments, or some days my personal bathroom care and all that took longer, or what have you. And so if I needed to work late to get the job done, it didn't matter to them as long as I met those goals that we had set. And so that was, something important. And then I think another big barrier that probably a lot of people face is the fear of losing whatever government assistance safety net that a lot of us are, fortunate to have, but also they don't make the transition easy. And so I've done a lot of gone through a lot of personal challenges with figuring all that out. And I've also just talked to a lot of other people that have done it, and just to encourage all of you, it can be done. There are some programs out there. These social workers and whatever you want to call them at the Social Security office, they don't know everything. And so sometimes, doing some of the research on your own is very helpful. From a wonderful website that I tell everyone about is Disability Benefits 101. So db101.org has a benefit calculator, and it has all sorts of information on each state's programs. And so I've gone into the Social Security office and literally quoted things like, what about, you know, program 1018B? It says here that I can make, you know, up to above 250% above the federal poverty line, which works out to be something like $40,000 a year, and still maintain that Medi-Cal. And the Medi-Cal covered a lot of my supplies. It covered some of my caregiving. It covered a lot of stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, well, let us go look into that. So I came in almost knowing more than they did. And so doing as much as, you know, people are supposed to care, supposed to help. No one cares as much about you as you do. And so taking kind of empowering yourself to come in, you know, with that knowledge base and then connecting with other people like we're doing today, I think is super important because you're not reinventing the wheel. You know, myself, Andrea, and James has all done this, and probably many more that are out there that can help you.
Completely true. We just linked that resource in the chat. So if you just, actually, you should be able to click on it and then it pops up. If not, we will get on it and link it there. James, are you with us yet or not quite? I think we'll give him a minute.
Not yet, still, sorry.
No worries. All right. Our next question. I have Nico working behind the PowerPoint.
Thanks, Andrew.
You guys have kind of touched on this, but I would be interested in, I think you were saying that you used vocational rehab, Andrew. I have met some other patients that have used Ticket to Work and the DOR. I was wondering if you guys used any of those resources. If not, what other resources and advice do you guys have for those interested in returning to work?
I'll go first, I guess. So the Department of Vocational Rehab, Department of Rehab, the DOR is a state mandated agency. If you guys aren't familiar with it, that sole purpose is to help people with disabilities return to work. And so if you haven't gotten involved with them, you should call and get a hold of your local office. I don't know how it's working now with the COVID and the pandemic, but normally what it starts off with is a basic kind of evaluation. You go in and you sit through a video, you kind of do a general kind of overview and basically make sure you're not faking it, right? That you really have a disability, and I'm 99.99% sure that all of you would be totally fine. And then you'd get paired up with a counselor and you would start sketching out a pathway to employment. And so a lot of people want to go in and say, I need a vehicle modification, or I need this, or I need that. It all has to be tied into your success in returning to the workforce. And so that's just the key word. If I had this, then I would be able to work. And so it's not a light switch where you just walk in and walk out with assistance, but you develop a relationship with a counselor. And it took me a couple years to get assistance to get my certification to drive again. That's very expensive. To modify my vehicle, it's very expensive. But I know a lot of people go back to school. If you want to learn a new trade, they'll cover all sorts of things from books to medical supplies to all sorts of stuff that will help you be more successful. Office equipment, computers, you name it. So that's a huge resource. And you know, a big part of it too is having some idea of what you want to do. And they can help you with that. And then if you guys are also looking for jobs, Triumph has a great resource that I'd be happy to share with everybody, and I can add it into the chat comments. But there's a website called abilityjobs.com, and it's all about finding employment for people with disabilities. And there's a handful of other websites, but that's the number one. And then one that I have often looked into was there's federal government is really interested in putting more people to work. And so sometimes getting a government job is a great pathway to contributing. And there's independent living centers that hire independent living briefly, and I'll turn it over, but it's also a government mandated agency that kind of works in tandem with the Department of Rehab. There's the Department of Rehab, independent living centers that have a wealth of community resources, but they also hire people. And so I've actually interviewed with them before. And so that might be something to do if you guys are passionate about helping the community. But they also will have some, information for you. And then the third kind of thing that they put in place when they passed the ADA mandating the Department of Rehab and Independent Living Centers is Disability Rights California. And Disability Rights is really great because they will be your advocate. So if you are working with Social Security and somehow you get dropped from a program or have questions, they'll step in and help advocate for you, and also make sure that both the Independent Living Center and Department of Rehab are doing what they should be doing. So there's a lot of great resources out there. A lot of it too is just applying for jobs, you know, getting a resume together, and it's like the lotto, you got to be in it to win it. So you got to send resumes out and see what comes back. And I can go more into that later, but maybe Andrea, do you want to add some things?
Well, you covered a lot. So that means that we're both almost saying those resources are good, and that's two people saying it. But yeah, I have used DOR. I guess that's considered a VR, vocational agency. And I had a good and a bad experience. So my good experience was that it felt good to be heard and understood and supported. But I felt I was trying to return to work in a temporary capacity. And at that point in time, the phone wasn't set up. It was set up to when I had to answer it, I had to bend my neck a particular way. Well, that wasn't good for me. And what I didn't understand, this is some of the things that you'll find when you return to work. You're not an expert either. You don't know. So it's almost like trial and error, but it's your body that you're trying with. And when you hit the error, sometimes it's too late. You're affected. So because of that, while talking on the phone, doing this, even what they had given me wasn't enough. It was still not good for me. I wound up in ER several times through that assignment, ER, crying in pain and not understanding. And then I talked to my doctor about it. I'm like, you know, how could this have affected me? He says, you're very weak still. You know, you just give the appearance of being strong. And, you know, so it was almost like I aggravated my prior injury, almost like a carpal tunnel, but I'm used to carpal tunnel happening over a period of time with excessive use of whatever muscle that is. But he's like, no, if you're starting out with weak muscles, it doesn't take long for that to happen. So it was the fight between who's gonna, I would have just purchased whatever I needed, like a headset, but this phone system was really old. So unfortunately, it was something that was very difficult to do. So I could no longer do that job. Something just that simple, you know, made a huge difference. And it was kind of discouraging. But I would try to tell the DOR, and I found out that they were just kind of writing down, she's fine, she's okay. I think that particular counselor was just trying to push me through, which was really bad. But when I found that out, that he wasn't taking notes of what the problems I was having, I was able to talk to a supervisor, and then we worked it out. But my good experience with them, so the moral of the story is, again, advocate for yourself. Andrew mentioned a great resource, Disability Rights Center. It's a really great resource, and it's free. I would say talk to your independent living centers, your regional centers. Other people, like this program is awesome. Sometimes the best thing is to talk to people like myself, so you don't have to go through what I went through. There's a program that I would love for, am I saying your name right, Nikisha?
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. If you can put that in the box, and I want to encourage people to look at this program called Promoting Opportunities Demonstration.
Okay.
What that is everything that we're talking about as far as income and SSI and SSDI. People don't know that this program exists. It started out as a, what kind of program is this? It's like a trial program. And what they're trying to do is prove to SSDI that they need reform. So what they've done is they've selected some people that are on SSI and SSDI in certain states, and you can work without having to worry about going over that threshold.
Yep.
And you are somewhat docked, or it's very similar to Social Security retirement. So when you work, they take a percentage of what you make, but it's so encouraging because you're not worried about losing the very things that you need to survive, because there's no guarantee that this person is going to keep you, even if you're permanent. There's no guarantee that if it's a temp job, it's going to continue. So it's almost like the way the system is set up now, you're punished for attempting to try to go back to work to be a productive citizen, which in my opinion helps you. If you can find the right balance of working or going back to school, in my opinion, it has actually helped my cognitive. It's helped me physically. It's when you do too much or you're sedentary, so that's why working is so important. Going back to school and getting that proper training is so important. And to me, it's helped because we're whole individuals. So I just feel like it's really good for wellness. It's good. And it hurts me when I see people say, oh, that person isn't disabled because I saw them on social media. It's like, that's kind of a barbaric thing to think. We're not supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be fitting in a small box. We should be partaking in those things. That's another form of skills that maybe we can try. Also, volunteering is also a good way to assess your skills. It doesn't mean that you'll be able to do this every day, but it's a start, So those are some of the things, along with what Andrew said, really helps. The reason why I wanted you guys to look into promoting opportunity demonstration is because there is a program already out there trying to help with that return to work. And unfortunately, it was a 3-year program, and they were going to take the stats and give it back to the government. Well, because of COVID, the last year was interrupted. And the funding, they're saying that they won't fund it anymore. It ends in June. And I just think that they should extend it. So if you can write letters, if you so choose to, or call the program and find out more about it, because I think that's one of the answers to one of the things that we're talking about here today.
That's perfect.
And also, housing is really important. Many programs that deal with homeless people understand that it doesn't matter why they're homeless, but once they get them in a good home, they're able to focus on finding work. So when you become disabled, when you, especially if you're acquired a disability like Andrew and I, you may not have a resource where developmentally disabled people may have some resources out there. People that acquire injuries really don't have a lot. And one of the things that was another barrier for me is when I first became disabled, my home was not accessible. So just to go in and out of my house every day was really difficult. So we need to have better housing solutions and things of that nature, and money for caregivers. It was difficult for me to get dressed every day. So imagine doing that every day, so. And I also think that they do pay people with vision impairments more, understandably why, because they need caregivers. But I think they need to revisit that and also consider that other people with disabilities also need a little bit more income to transition.
Great.
I'm off my soapbox now, I'm sorry.
No, we love it. That's the point of this discussion. You guys shared some great resources. There's tons out there too. We linked some of those, and I think Andrew linked some too in that chat as well. Not to, keep coming back to CASA, but in our next one, we do have return to school and someone for continuing ed, and your rights to return to school, the accommodations, supports that you have. And then after that, on April 14th is the DOR. And hopefully they'll provide some good information, but I think you guys make great points that you need to advocate for yourself, look out for yourself, do your own research, and then keep asking those questions and keep fighting for what you guys are trying to get. So that's great. We have some questions coming in, but I think we have one more question that we developed. And I think you guys kind of touched on this. You were saying there's huge advantages to meaningful activity to return to work. And I was telling people when they were trying to attend this, like, we're not just addressing return to work, we're addressing return to meaningful activity and purpose. So what do you guys think are some advantages? And then when I was thinking of disadvantages in returning to work, the SSI, that's the #1 question we get is, will this affect what will happen if I try to return to work? So you guys touched on that, but if you have any other comments regarding this, that would be beneficial to hear from you guys.
So, I mean, obviously an advantage to returning to work is an opportunity to contribute, to society. And I think a lot of people kind of find their identity in what they do for a living and what they do for a career. And so giving you a sense of purpose. And obviously there might be some monetary benefits too, as far as being able to live a better lifestyle, a higher priced lifestyle, I guess, and having some money to do things. And so, those are probably the two big things of why would you want to return to work? To utilize your talents. I think every single one of you is God-given gifts that you guys can share with others. And obviously, earning an income is a good thing too. And getting off government assistance programs is not as they are. It's achievement to say I'm now providing for myself at least as much as possible. Obviously, there's lots of challenges with returning to work. There's disadvantages as you have obligations, and you're not able to be as laissez-faire with what you do with your days, and you have the risk of not able to do what you may feel like is best for your care at certain times. There's just challenges with balancing those doctor's appointments and this and that. But if I could touch on a couple things really quickly, you killed it saying a lot of the things that I wish I would have, as far as, with these programs, advocating for yourself. The initial counselor that you might get may be new there. Maybe they don't know everything there is to know. And so appealing to a higher authority there. Sometimes, I had to go through a couple counselors as well, and I didn't add that into my story. And then something that, is really important, I think, as we live, like I said, in the information age, and figuring out how to use your computer in a fast way, because a lot of times that's with all types of jobs these days. A lot of it's based behind a laptop or a computer desk. And so for me, I use a track mouse ball, and I use voice typing and some other adaptations. And I think a couple of the chats down there, and there's a lot of them, but one, starting your own business, and the SSI thing, and I'll just touch on those so we can get the others later. So I actually started a number of my own businesses. It's a great way, you can start an LLC, and if you have it's a form of corporation. And so honestly, the corporation can earn money and not pay yourself. And so you could start working without it necessarily affecting your benefits directly. So the way that you could return to work without taking that giant leap off, the SCI and all that kind of stuff. And I personally have used Rocket Lawyer or LegalZoom, which are two great websites that will help walk you through the process of starting a company, starting an LLC, starting a C Corp, whatever kind of entity you want. If you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, that does count against your personal income. And so that may not be the best route, but there's, like I said, these corporations are seen by the government as a separate entity. And so I'd love to tell you guys more about that at a later time. And then something I learned, we had Disability Rights California be a speaker at one of our recent groups, and they do have a fast track program. So if you do go back to work, with Medicaid programs, there is a very small income margin where if you earn a little bit more than they want you to, they're going to drop you. But you have some ticket to work programs and things that will help you with that transition. And then we don't have enough time today, but with Medicare and some of the Social Security programs on the federal level, they do have some work periods where you can work for I think almost a year earning, and before they would actually drop you from your coverage. But there's a lot. It's a big ball of twine to unwind and to figure out. And I'd be happy to talk to any of you on the outside. And then Triumph Foundation, we have a grant program that helps people with not only normal things like a ramp for your home and things like that, but we do an employment award that comes out about once a quarter that will actually give you some investment capital, some to help you get started. It's a competition, so you have to submit a business plan and a budget and things like that. We can't choose everyone, but there are some things that we're trying to do on a grassroots level because there's a lot that's to be desired that's missing that the government's just not doing. And so people got to do it for ourselves. So I want to help you, and I'm just really excited to be here. So yeah, I'll let you take
Awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Andrew said and to add, I think he touched on this, but they have career one-stop job centers. And one of the things about promoting opportunity demonstration is that it comes with a counselor or social worker who is a social worker. So when I told her, and we thought one good goal for me was to create my own business, which is something that I've wanted to do for a while, just could never get it off the ground. She pointed me to one of these career job centers. Also, I would say, I can't stress this enough, to know what your symptoms are, what your individual disability is. Talk with someone, call, Andrew, talk to your vocational counselor, find out what your individual situation is, because yours isn't the same. I could have an SCI, someone else can have one, but we're affected differently. Many people with SCIs don't have the cognitive issues that I have, so they may be able to return to work easier. Always talk to HR or whoever about getting ergonomically outfitted, for your back and your neck and all of that. Don't feel like, they're going to retaliate if you ask for these things. There's, if that happens, there's, call Disability Rights Center. These are things that you need to do. But I can't stress that it's very good to understand what you need and have that discussion with your employer. It's hard for them to ask because it could be offensive. So it's best for you to say, and this is what I always say, in order for me to be successful, this is what I need. So that way I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I do want someone to be compassionate and help me along that return to work journey. I'm really excited. I have not completed all the things that I need to do to start my business. So I may even reach out to Andrew, I'm not sure. And Casa Colina, I have gone to Casa Colina before, and they've been a great resource. I'm not sure if they have a driving program there, but they've been a great resource to me as well. But thank you so much.
Awesome. I like how you gave that example of what to say to get accommodations, because I've had people just be like, it's too scary to ask for accommodations. And I think having that line of, how can I be successful? I need to do this. It's a great example of it. So we're going to go into questions from individuals and participants. We have a group actually at TLC of a lot of individuals with SCI, and they're all just writing questions in the chat. And I think you touched on one, Andrew, but another one says, how long does it take to be evaluated by DOR? And how soon should you contact them? Do either of you have insight into that one?
Sure. So I don't know how it works right now, and thankfully Casa Colina is doing a session with the DOR in 2 weeks, right? Or coming up.
Correct.
Soon.
April 14th.
You can get that information directly from them. But like I said, you call, you schedule an appointment, and I think they do it like with my office, and they may not all be the same, but every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Would you like to come in next week or the following week or whatever? And then you do that initial, base screening where you fill out some paperwork. Like I said, you watch a video, learn more about what they do. And if you're interested, then they'll assign you a counselor. And I don't know what the time it would take to get actually paired up with somebody, but my guess is within a month. And then when do you go do that? I mean, if you're at TLC right now, that you're probably there because you're relatively newly injured, and I always tell people to really focus that first year on your own recovery. You got to while the iron's hot, and so as anxious as you are to probably get back to work, you may want to focus on your own personal recovery for a little bit. But no, it's really up to you, and it's a personal thing, and you'll have to make the best decision for yourself.
Great advice.
And I'll echo what Andrew said. Please, as much as you want to return, my return to work journey was extended, and I had more difficulties because I was so anxious to want to go back, and it was just too soon. And I actually got worse, every time I attempted to go back because I, did it too soon. I didn't have the right tools, and I had a lot of fatigue. So definitely pace yourself. It can be done, though. It can be done.
It can be done. You can start having the conversation now. And just because you sign up with the DLR doesn't mean there's some sort of timeline. They'll work with you indefinitely, basically. So don't be discouraged, but on the same note, make sure, you focus on yourself. Your job right now is to be the best you that you can possibly be. And when you get to a good place and you're ready to, begin that next chapter, you're obviously welcome to talk to me, Andrea. Casa Colina has an amazing team. There's lots of people out there that are more than to help.
Great. James, I think you're joining us now. I think you're on mute still, though.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. So,
sorry about that.
No worries. I think like we're talking about, self-care is a priority. So things pop up, you got to handle them.
Right. Well, just a little bit about myself. Like she said, I was
Resources, advice for people returning to work.
Well, if for me, I obviously couldn't return to the medical field right away. So I decided to go with my artistic side, and I started to delve into creations and creating things that I could sell. And but in order to be a company, I had to, figure out how to start a business, how to go down to the city and apply for a business license. So I did a lot of research online about the process, and I was able to go down there and get Unique Pic Creations started. And so with that said, I was able to crowdfund for the supplies I needed to get done. And that's a really good resource is to be able to have people, chip in. A lot of times people are wondering, what can they do to help? And a lot of times with SCI patients or people are afraid to touch you, or afraid that they might hurt you further. And it just feels sometimes kind of awkward around you. But most people are more than happy to kick in a few dollars here, 20, 30, 40 bucks. So to use crowdfunding methods to help you get started is a really great asset. And it's what I use as well for myself to get started. I don't know if I'm able to share a screen with you guys to show you a few things. Nico, if you can allow me to share the screen.
Nico is trying. We did just link your site, and actually, Andrea, I hope you're okay. We shared your Facebook group as well, because all of these websites, organizations are amazing, and I think we should let everyone know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. You should be able to host
sure.
it now.
Okay. Can you see that?
You actually can't. Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, so what I want to show you is some of the work that I've done. I use Photoshop a lot. And as you can see, um, this is not a microphone. This is actually my mouse. But I wanted to show you a quick couple of things that I did. Right now, I'm working with the research department in Cal State, and I created their logo for them for the technology division, and made a bunch of products for some of the research team. Um, some of you may know this gentleman. His name is Will Sampson. He worked with Jack Nicholson. He was on the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, also on Poltergeist 3, and a few other movies from Westerns. Anyways, he passed away about 20 years ago, and his two sons and his ex-wife were friends to me and my family. So recently, I did a project involving his two sons. Their names are Soji and Miko, right? And I knew them when they were barely 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
Now, carrying on the tradition of their um, lineage, they do different types of dances and whatnot. And I was able to do one of their feature posters, and I was able to superimpose their father into the background. So these are projects that I do for myself that generate income for me. There's another project I took all these Star Wars characters and put them into one scene. Um, and just to give you a quick example of how I work, I'll take a photo and do a lot of blending and different aspects of using Photoshop.
Very cool, James. I don't mean to cut you off, but we have about 4 minutes. Do you have any advice for people looking to return to work?
The only advice I have is to be creative, because we have to think differently now that we have to endure such um, our injuries. And just don't give up, persevere, and you can do anything.
Good. I have one more question, because I think you guys all started saying how you had to reinvent yourself. If you could give people interested in returning to work one homework assignment on how to reinvent themselves, what would you say or give?
Go ahead, Nico, or Andrew.
What was that, James?
I was giving it to Andrew.
Oh, Andrew, go for it.
No, I'm going to give it to Andrea. Come on. And I'll do it. Go next. Ladies first.
Okay. I would say don't define yourself by other people's opinions. That's
Love
it.
Great.
Yeah, I think and there's tools out there to help you be successful. I mean, watching James using the assistive technology and the computer programs that are available. And, you know, if a dumbass like me can do it, you can do it too.
Solid advice.
And I would say utilize all the resources given to you, explore them, because something might chime in that you could connect with. For me, it was this mouse. It just opened up a whole world for me. And this was a resource that was taught to me at Casa. So utilize all your resources.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
And don't be afraid to use mobility aids. One of the biggest resources for me are my leg braces. So they have really freed me. And even when I used a wheelchair for many, many years, people look at it as limiting. It was actually freeing. And I made sure that I had one of the best looking wheelchairs out there at that time. So yeah.
Exactly. Right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for sharing your knowledge, experience, insight into return to work. We've posted all your information in the chat for any participants interested in. We have more. We have Wednesday, April 7th, continuing education. I think there was a question on grants and returning to school, and I was just going to save that question for next time for Gonzalo. So we hope that you guys to work now. We are doing a study where individuals come and work at Casa. So we're taking applications right now. I'll have Nico put in the link for the application, but that's starting end of April. And it's part of a research study, part of the Craig H. Nielsen grant. So come work at Casa. We'll give you all the job training you need, everything. But Triumph has amazing job opportunities and resources as well. So reach out to them and all the other resources provided. And
yeah, and if you want to get into entertainment,
yeah.
The link that they provided for you guys, a lot of times people will send me stuff and I'll post it. So I believe that media really helps depict positive representation of people with disabilities. So that's what I focus on, but yeah.
Perfect. Thank you again to our speakers, and thank you for everyone for joining. And if you have any questions, reach out to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Casa Colina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Nico.